Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Horler and I'm here with Ruth Wandhöfer of Citi. And we're at Warwick Business School's PayTech conference. Thank you very much for joining me, Ruth.
Thanks a lot.
We've never arrived at a cashless society. Why is that?
There was a lot of debate today around that cashless society phenomenon. We talked about it for 50, 60 years. And despite all these innovations we've seen, particularly in the retail space, it seems that we're only now moving into a more cashless element with near-field communication and all the contactless cards. And there was actually some debate as to whether this may change our payment behavior as a society, with people spending more than they should, a bit like when credit cards were introduced many years ago. So I think we definitely have to say we're not at a cashless society despite all these years of work. And at the same time, we do see digital elements of new instruments emerging that are certainly indicating that we are on the way to a more cashless society, maybe quicker than we were the last 50 years.
How are innovations in the financial industry set to evolve the payments ecosystem?
That's a very exciting question, debated here and of course elsewhere around the globe. The big innovation that people have seen over the last few years is of course Bitcoin and blockchain technology and the use of private digital currencies, which are nothing more than data cryptographically sealed. And of course central banks have a key worry in this because they don't control the money supply any longer, they can't exert monetary policy, and therefore a lot of emerging and developed governments are actually looking at the technology as to how they should be appropriating some elements in order to make sure they still have control over the payments and money ecosystem. We also discussed a lot about the fact that banks are still at the center of credit creation, and that is intricately linked to payments. And therefore, despite the frenzy in the payment value chain with lots of fintech companies, banks are still very, very relevant in payments for that matter. And I think the question will be whether the new technology of distributed ledger may eventually change that ecosystem in the long run, and therefore what is the role of a bank going to be in the future, what is the role of a central bank, and what is really the role of money in society at large. We discussed also money just being a claim or an entitlement to something. If you burn up your money, you basically have burned up your entitlement, which is indeed true, and therefore a digital representation of it would not necessarily change that aspect of it.
How could distributed ledger technologies work in a governmental environment?
Yeah, I think that is a really interesting point because here we are in the UK, in London, and the UK government is very much forward-thinking. They have identified distributed ledger technology as something that they want to understand better, and they want to find a way to maybe use it in government in the longer run. It's all about how you really organize your whole civil service, how you distribute benefit payments, how you allocate entitlements, and the blockchain technology, or maybe to be more precise, a version of distributed ledger that would need to be defined in that context in terms of what features it should have, and most importantly the governance, the regulations around it, would maybe provide a more efficient way to move data, to move assets and entitlement, and create transparency. And I think that's definitely something that the government is exploring, particularly parts of the government like DWP, and we've just seen in January the issuance of the Department of Science distributed ledger report, which is maybe a first step to start thinking about the different ways of how you can apply the technology. I would say we're probably still 10 or 5 years away, definitely, from actually using it in such a big use case. But most importantly, I think it's going to be interesting to see in the next 3 to 4 years how we can see more distinct services running on a distributed ledger. We've got the Nasdaq example. We may have in the future KYC on distributed ledger. We may see more actual live services that demonstrate that the technology can work. And I think that will be also an element of where the government can then start embracing this, because it's shown to be proven.
Ruth, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And thank you for watching.